studies the world over that there is a sixth sense, stronger in some people than others, that you know, you're walking through your family ranch, you feel someone looking at you, you turn, you walk 200 yards, somebody's in a deer stand on a hill looking at you, you sense them. You're in a restaurant, you feel someone looking at you, you turn around, there they are. It's real. And in my life, whenever I've gone with my instinct, my gut, it's always right. When I try to go with the intellectual or whatever, you know, that's hit or miss. And bringing up the Hunger Games, you talk about the stadium. They have false stadiums that are so big, it's an artificial sun rising and setting. They've got floating UN craft with peacekeepers from the technological central government that plays the 12 zones off against each other. And it's all about how they're creating this false reality for people. And there they are throwing it in everyone's face. Tell folks what's happening, because you, before we went on air here, you said, be sure, Alex, you know, and bring up what's happening in Hawaii, because you were using it as an example of nowhere to run. People tried to keep you from speaking. Tell us what's happened there.
Yeah, well, just very quickly, you know, what you just said there about the intellect and intuition, that's absolutely key to what I've been saying here, because the intellect operates within the body-mind biological computer. And therefore, because it's such a low level of awareness compared with consciousness, soul, whatever you want to call it, it has to work things out. Whereas, you know, you've just talked about it. When we have an intuitive feeling, it's a knowing. It's a knowing. You don't have to work it out or explain it. You just know. Why? Because that's coming from that which is beyond this manipulated reality, and that can take you through the maze in the world that's been created for us, that the intellect has got no chance of doing. And that's the way home, that for me. All I've done in the last 22 years is when I made a decision 22 years ago that if my head and my intuitive knowing were you know, at war with each other, I was going with my intuition. And that's all I've done ever since. And eventually the head and the intuition, the intellect and the heart come together. So the head starts to serve consciousness rather than be the governor of it. In terms of this intuitive knowing, by the way, this is what the system's terrified of. In their own writings, they say the only thing that could disrupt our plans is maverick people. And maverick people are those that come from intuitive knowing rather than programmed mind. But in terms of Hawaii, yes, Hawaii is such a stunningly beautiful place. And so many people who aren't born here have come to live, to escape the rat race, to escape the system, and to live an alternative lifestyle with organic food and you know, healthy lifestyles and all the yoga and all that stuff. But because this conspiracy does not have a location that it operates in, it wants to take the world over, there comes a point where you start to realize there is nowhere to escape to. Because if we don't turn round and face this and deal with it together, then we can escape for a while to some idyllic place or some archipelago or whatever. But eventually, there'll be a knock on the door. And what we're seeing here now is, first of all, there's the, you know, so many people, great, I love it. I have the organic food and the healthy lifestyle. But while they're doing that, they're washing the organic food often with the water supply that's impregnated with chemicals from Monsanto and others coming from the put on the crops going into the water table. Goodness knows what's dropping on the food and what's being breathed in and what's in the water and the sea from Fukushima. We don't know the scale of that yet. And then there's the chemtrails that you see over Hawaii, which is dropping the aluminium and the barium on the organic food and all this stuff. Then you've got Pearl Harbor over at Honolulu, the major naval and air force base, which means that any conflict with China pulls Hawaii into the front line of that in terms of location and also the military operation here. And where I'm going with this is, you know, you can only run for a while. And then you realize, actually, you're at the edge of the cliff and there's nowhere to run. And we need to start to have the courage and have the foresight to see that we're not going to run away from this, because it will catch up with us. We need to all turn around, and if we're going to run at all, run straight at it, because when we do, it will start running. You know, I used to be a soccer player years ago, and what you see sometimes, you see a little guy, midfield player with a ball, not very big, very slight of body, and in front of him are big, hairy defenders, all big, strong, impregnable. And most people, they'd say, oh, we're not getting through there. So they'd pass the ball square or pass it here, get it back and go nowhere. What some of these little confident little midfield players do is they get the ball and they run straight at them. Now, these big, hairy defenders that looked impregnable have got to deal with them. And they drop their shoulder right, drop their shoulder left. Now, the big, hairy defenders are now having to react to them. And what do we do now? Suddenly, this impregnable wall of people is in disarray.
Exactly. You've got to stop running.
Run at it.
You've got to stop running and start engaging them, and then you take the momentum, and now they're on the defense because they're attacking us, and so it's defensive to go on the offense, and the universe respects that as well, and that's how you gain converts to liberty and the awakening, is not being pensive and afraid and apologizing, but by being bold, because these are bold times. And David, I totally agree with what you're saying. So many people call me and they go, oh, this is real. I checked it out. It's true. How do I hide and protect myself? Or how do I get a bunch of guns and food and just wait for the end? And it's not bad to have guns and food to protect yourself, but that's a small insurance backup. The real insurance is engaging aggressively and not acting scared, because you're the good guy. You're the good lady. You're the people out there warning people. You've got an incredibly important mission. And when you do go at it from that perspective, because that's what I've always done, that's when you have the real success. People call me and say, well, how do I get out of the system and not have them track me? The point is, you say, hey, criminals, I know you're tracking me because you're crooks and you are afraid of what we know about you. It's not that I'm scared you're tracking me. It proves that you are criminal scum. People say, man, you must be paranoid. No, I'm not paranoid. I'm aware. People say, well, don't be negative. No, I'm incredibly positive by facing the facts, so we have a real chance of addressing this and dealing with it. And
this is such an important point. This is such an important point. I'm sick of hearing people say, oh, you're frightening people. Oh, no, it's negative. Knowledge is never negative. Knowledge always empowers, no matter what knowledge it is, because it's giving you a greater fix on the situation we're facing. I tell you what's negative: ignorance. Ignorance is negative. That's how we got into this situation. And people who say, oh, it's negative, or, well, get a grip of yourself, because if we are going to be frightened even of the information circulating, then we've got no chance at all. And the point you were making earlier, Alex, a few minutes ago about waiting for the end. Now, this is a point. Now, we can stockpile food and sit there waiting for the knock on the door, or we can start going at the system, and the knock on the door will never come, because the system won't be there to do it. This is what we need to do. We've got to start running at them, running at the system, ceasing to cooperate with it, ceasing to be intimidated by it. And we'll be amazed at, the power that this system has over humanity. It's persuading humanity. He has power over them. It's a mind trick, a mind game. And when you run at these people, you realize actually it is just a figment of people's imagination. The power is not there. They just want us to believe it, because then we'll acquiesce to them.
Yeah, there's a lot of people out there that say, oh, Alex Jones, David Icke, they're saying we've got hope. We don't have hope. And the information they're putting out can be accurate on issues, but this idea that we don't have hope and don't have power, in my own life, I don't have the skills that a lot of other people have, but I've reached 15 million people a week, literally, through XM, AM and FM, internet, YouTube, all of it. 15 million is a conservative number. And I know there are people smarter, more talented, everything, but I, my whole life, have always run at them. When somebody challenges me, I don't understand reverse just because it doesn't feel right. And if we can just get people to realize, I'm always looking for other leaders. I'm always looking for people to build up, to go at the system. And people are always thinking just because I'm there or you're there or whatever, we're there, Ron Paul, whatever, that somehow, G. Edward Griffin, that, oh, I'm glad you're there and I'm glad you guys are. No, we're here to wake up those that aren't awake yet. Once you're awake, we need the next Alex Jones, the next David Icke, to be a leader and then find the next person, because it's through awakening millions and then getting hundreds of thousands of the leaders that are there to really take it to the next level that we cannot be stopped. And I've always known that's my mission, is to reach out to others, to then have them activate like ripples in a pond to get the chain reaction of awakening going. And that chain reaction, I can feel it, has already begun, and the system is going to do desperate things to try to block it. David Icke, thank you so much for the time. DavidIcke.com. People want to find out about your speaking engagements, your last book, the new book coming out. Tell us a little bit about that, and then I have one last question for you.
Well, the new book's called Remember Who You Are, and it's a multi-level book about the nature of reality, the nature of the human psyche, and hard names, dates, places, uncovering of what's happening in the world in terms of daily world events, and what the gender is and all that stuff. But it's called Remember Who You Are for the very reason, Alex, that we were talking about in this chat. We need to remember that you are not Alex Jones and I'm not David Icke. They are names for our experience. We are not our names. We are not our job. We are not our income bracket. We are not our race. We are consciousness having those experiences. And when you remember that, then this incredible power comes into your life, which is just the greater you expressing itself because you've opened your mind and let it in. And then what we call miracles become possible, including what many people would see as a miracle currently, which is bringing this control system down. But it will come down. It will come down. Consciousness will bring it down because it is built on mind. And consciousness and mind are like the sumo wrestler and the two-stone weakling. The event in Hawaii on Saturday is on Maui, and I'll be talking for 9 hours over the day with about 1,500 images, connecting the dots across all these things. It's so important now that people stop seeing things like love and spiritual things as concepts. They have to become actions. If you are at the side of a river and a child falls in the river, you don't sit on the bank sending out love to the child, do you? You jump in the river and express love by pulling them out. Well, we need to take it from the theory to the action, and then we'll get somewhere.
Beautifully said. A question I get constantly is, it's twofold. Here are the two questions. Why are you, Alex Jones, David Icke, Ron Paul, still alive?